The air does not smell of France. You have never known the damp earth and soft rains of your grandfather's Normandy, but you have heard the stories. Here, the wind carries the sharp, clean scent of cedar from the high peaks and the salt of the Mediterranean from the coast below. It is the smell of home. The year is 1210, and you are a squire, but your training ground is not a flat, grassy tourney field. It is a narrow, winding path carved into the side of the Kadisha Valley, a gorge so deep it seems to fall away into the earth's very core. Your master, Sir Raymond of Giblet, rides not a massive destrier, but a sturdy mountain mule whose hooves strike the stone with a sure-footed rhythm. He, like you, wears Frankish mail forged in the armories of Acre, but his cloak is of heavy, dark wool, dyed in the Maronite style. He is a new kind of man, a product of the Great Compromise, and you are his heir. This is the Kingdom of Outremer, not the fragile coastal strip Richard the Lionheart salvaged from the wreck of Saladin's conquests, but something new, something tougher, rooted in stone and faith. You pass a procession of monks, their faces weathered like the rock around them, their lips moving in the cadence of Syriac, a language that sounds more like the whispers of the ancient world than the Latin of the Mass. They nod to Sir Raymond, not with the deference given to a foreign lord, but with the familiarity of a kinsman. One of them, the abbot, calls out a greeting in a heavily accented French, inquiring about the state of the new watchtower, being constructed above the monastery of St. Anthony. This is the heart of your kingdom's strength. After the catastrophe at Hattin and the loss of Jerusalem, your ancestors faced a choice: to remain a foreign garrison, forever dependent on the whims of European popes and princes, waiting to be pushed into the sea, or to become part of this land. They chose the latter. They turned their gaze from the sea and looked to the mountains. They found the Maronites, a people who had clung to their distinct Christian faith in these unforgiving mountains for centuries, resisting caliphs and sultans with a tenacity born of isolation. The Pact of the Cedars, signed in 1197, was not a simple alliance of convenience. It was a fusion. The Maronite patriarch was granted a permanent seat on the Haute Cour, the High Court of the kingdom. Maronite mountain chiefs were granted fiefs and titles in exchange for sworn military service. Their warriors, masters of the ambush and the mountain pass, formed new regiments trained by Templar sergeants in the use of the crossbow, but retaining their own lethal skills in broken terrain. In return, Frankish engineering transformed the ancient monasteries of the Kadisha Valley. You look down and see it. The monastery of Our Lady of Hamatura, a real-world anchor of faith, is no longer just a sanctuary. It is a fortress. Frankish masons have reinforced its walls, built crenellated towers that command the approaches, and carved a deep cistern into the rock, allowing it to withstand a siege indefinitely. It is a citadel of God, blending the spiritual discipline of the monks with the military discipline of the Knights Hospitaller. This is your reality. The cross and the crossbow, the censer and the sword are one. Sir Raymond halts his mule and gestures with a gauntleted hand. "Look there, boy," he says, his voice a gravelly rumble. "The Ayyubid fool in Damascus thinks he can starve us out. He controls the Bekaa Valley, the grain basket. He thinks he can cut us off from the farmlands of Galilee. He spits on the stone path, but he does not understand the mountain, and he does not understand the sea. This is the kingdom's dual nature. The mountain is its shield, the sea its lifeline. While the Maronite fighters and Frankish knights guard the mountain passes, the ports of Tyre, Acre, and Tripoli thrive. Genoese and Venetian galleys crowd their harbours. For Outremer is still the terminus of the spice and silk roads. But the profits from that trade no longer go solely to building grand cathedrals to impress visitors from Europe. They go to buying grain from Sicily and Cyprus. They go to paying for Armenian mercenaries. They go to forging better steel. The kingdom has learned the hard lesson that God may grant you victory, but only logistics will allow you to survive it. As you continue your patrol, you encounter another knight, Sir Andros of Aden. His skin is darker than yours, his features sharper. His father was a Maronite chieftain who swore fealty to the crown. Andros was squired, trained, and knighted just as any son of a Frankish baron would be. He commands a company of mountaineers, men who move with a silent grace that unsettles the few newly arrived Crusaders from Europe. This is the unexpected twist of your world. Nobility is no longer defined solely by bloodline from across the sea. It is earned here, in the defence of this land. A Maronite who can hold a mountain pass against a raid. A Frankish merchant who can secure a vital grain contract in Venice. These men are the new pillars of the realm. Their loyalty is not to a distant king in Paris or a Holy Roman Emperor in Germany, but to the Grand Master in Acre and the Patriarch in the mountains. This fusion, however, creates a deep and abiding ethical tension. At a small fort overlooking the valley, you stop to water the mules. A newly arrived knight from Anjou, his face still pale from the sea voyage, watches Sir Andros's men with unconcealed disdain. He sees their curved daggers, hears their unfamiliar tongue, and sees something not quite Christian, not quite right. "We ally with these people," he mutters to you, assuming a shared European sentiment. They are halfway to being Saracens themselves. Their liturgy is not in the proper Latin. They allow their priests to marry. How is this a holy land if we dilute the very faith we are here to protect? Sir Raymond overhears him. He turns, his eyes cold as iron. "Sir Philippe," he says, his voice low and dangerous. "The faith you are here to protect was born in this land, spoken in a language closer to theirs than to yours. While your ancestors were painting themselves blue in the forests of Gaul, their ancestors were debating theology with the apostles. They kept the faith alive in these mountains when the whole world sought to extinguish it. We are not diluting our faith, we are rediscovering its roots." The Angevin knight falls silent, shamed but unconvinced. And in that silence, you feel the deep fissure within your world. To survive, the Kingdom of Outremer had to become Levantine. It had to accept that its destiny was here, intertwined with the local Christians, not as a colonial outpost of Europe. But in doing so, it created a paradox. It is a Crusader state that is no longer crusading in the European sense. It is a kingdom fighting for its own survival, its own unique identity. The goal is no longer the conquest of Jerusalem, a dream that died in the dust of Hattin. The goal is the preservation of this hybrid world, this fortress built upon the mountain and the sea. You mount up and continue your patrol, the valley falling into shadow as the sun dips behind the western peaks. You are part of a grand experiment, a graft of Frankish warrior culture onto ancient Semitic Christian roots. It is a state built on a pragmatic rejection of European colonial ideals in favour of local integration. This new Outremer is harder, leaner, and more resilient than the First Kingdom. But the question, the one Sir Philippe's sneer laid bare, hangs in the cold mountain air. Is it still the same thing? By changing to survive, have you betrayed the very purpose for which your ancestors crossed the sea? Or have you, by wedding yourself to the land, become its truer, more permanent defender? The answer is not yet clear. But as you look towards the dark plains to the east, where the Ayyubid banners fly, you know that your strange, hybrid kingdom will soon be tested. You are no longer the boy on the mule, 40 years have passed since that patrol in the Kadisha Valley. The year is 1260. The silver in your beard matches the steel of your mail, and you now sit on the haute cour in Acre as the Baron of Sidon. You have seen the Ayyubid sultans of Damascus rise and fall, their internecine squabbles a constant, predictable rhythm to the politics of the Levant. You learned their ways, their strengths, their weaknesses. They were the devil you knew. But the devil you knew is gone, swept away by a new power from Egypt. The Mamluks, a slave dynasty, harder, more disciplined, and utterly committed to the idea of jihad. Their Sultan, Baibars, is a shadow that stretches from Cairo to your very doorstep. The Kingdom of Outremer, your mountain and sea fortress, has survived, but it feels like you are clinging to a rock as the tide rises, each wave higher and stronger than the last. Then come the whispers. They travel along the Silk Road with the caravans, stories so outlandish they are dismissed at first as bizarre fables. A king from the east, a Christian named Prester John, an army that is not an army, but a nation on the march, a force of nature that levelled Samarkand, that turned Bukhara to dust. Then the stories become more concrete, more terrifying. Persia has fallen. The assassins, the bogeymen of your own realm, have been exterminated in their mountain fortress of Alamut. And then, the unthinkable, Baghdad, the city of the Caliph, the heart of Islam for 500 years, has been sacked. The Caliph, they say, was wrapped in a carpet and trampled to death by horses, because his conquerors believed it taboo to spill royal blood upon the earth. This is not a rival sultan. This is an apocalypse. This is the horde of Gog and Magog, pouring from the pages of Scripture into the harsh sunlight of your world. This is the Mongol. In the spring, they arrive, not as an invading army, but as an embassy. They do not ride the fine Arabian stallions of the Mamluks. They ride squat, shaggy ponies that seem tireless. The envoys themselves are men unlike any you have ever seen. Their faces are broad, their eyes slanted, their beards thin. They wear armour of lacquered leather and silk, and they carry themselves with an unnerving stillness, their gaze missing nothing. They are led by a general of the great Khan Hulagu. His name is Kitbuka, and he is a Christian. This is the fact that shatters your world. Kitbuka is a Nestorian, a follower of a faith condemned as heresy in Rome, but one whose adherents have lived in these lands for a millennium. He makes the sign of the cross, though it is a gesture alien to your own. He speaks of his master Hulagu, whose wife is also a Nestorian Christian, and of the great Khan's desire to scourge the world of the followers of Muhammad. He comes to the haute cour in Acre, not to beg for an alliance, but to deliver a choice. Join the irresistible tide of Mongol power, as it sweeps the land clean, or be swept away with the rest. The sky has but one eternal God. The translator intones, the envoy's words flat and devoid of emotion. And the earth has but one sovereign lord, the great Khan. All who submit will know peace and prosperity. All who resist will be erased. The council chamber explodes. A papal legate, newly arrived from Rome, his face flushed with indignation, slams his fist on the great oak table. He calls it a devil's bargain. To ally with these pagan savages, these butchers who have slaughtered the Christians of Georgia and the Rus, is to spit on the cross. We are the army of Christ, he thunders. We do not make pacts with the Antichrist to save our own skins. God will provide. You rise to speak, your voice low and weary. You have lived your entire life here. You understand things this man from Italy cannot. God provides us with the sense to see the reality before us. You counter, your gaze sweeping over the assembled barons, the masters of the military orders. The legate speaks of the Rus, but it is the Mamluk who is at the gates of Tyre today. It is Baibars who vows to drive us into the sea. We are caught between a hurricane and a rising sea. We can be drowned by one or shattered by the other. Or we can use the hurricane's wind to drive back the waves. Your faction, the Levantine lords, the men who have intermarried with the Maronites and the Armenians, who understand the complex tapestry of this world, carries the day. The decision is made. It is a terrifying gamble, an alliance born not of kinship, but of pure, cold desperation. This is the ethical tension at the heart of your new world. You will save your Christian kingdom by allying with a force that has visited untold slaughter upon Christendom. You justify it as a holy war, but in the quiet of your chapel at night, you know it is simply survival. The campaign that follows is unlike anything in the annals of warfare. Your army, a few thousand knights and sergeants, perhaps 10,000 Maronite and Armenian infantry, joins the Mongol host. And it is a host. They stretch from horizon to horizon, a sea of horsemen moving with a fluid, disciplined silence. You are a knight, a master of the heavy cavalry charge, the tactic that has dominated battlefields for 2 centuries. But watching the Mongols, you realize it is like comparing a swordsman to an earthquake. They communicate with flags and horn blasts over vast distances. They can strip a countryside bare of all resources in a matter of hours. Their siegecraft, learned from conquered Chinese engineers, is devastating. Aleppo falls. Then Damascus. The slaughter is methodical, industrial. You and your knights are held in reserve, a tactical decision by Kit Booker that is also a quiet display of dominance. He does not need you for the slaughter. He needs you for the one battle that matters. It comes at a place called Ain Jalut, the spring of Goliath. Here, the Mamluk army, under their Sultan Qutuz, makes its stand. In another world, this is where the Mongol advance was halted, a pivotal moment in history. But this is not that world. In this world, the Mongols are not a detached reconnaissance force. They have you. The Mamluks advance, their elite Bahri slave soldiers, forming a wave of disciplined steel, the finest heavy cavalry in the Islamic world. Your knights are positioned on the right flank of the Mongol line, a solid, glittering wall of steel. The Grand Master of the Templars gives the command. The charge is thunderous, perfect, a textbook maneuver of Frankish chivalry. You lower your lance, the impact a bone-jarring shock as you smash into the Mamluk line. But this is the unexpected twist of your victory. You do not break them. They are too good, too disciplined. But you hold them. You become the anvil. For a precious hour, your heavy horsemen and knights engage in a brutal, swirling melee with the Mamluk vanguard, a contest of equals. And while you hold them fast, the Mongol hammer strikes. Tens of thousands of horse archers, who had feigned a retreat, reappear on the flanks. The sky darkens with arrows. The Mamluks, pinned by your charge, unable to maneuver, are decimated. They are caught between the immovable object of Frankish chivalry and the irresistible force of the Mongol horde. The battle becomes a massacre. Sultan Qutuz is captured and executed on the spot. The Mamluk army, the shield of Islam, ceases to exist. You stand on the field of victory that evening, the air thick with the smell of blood and dust. The immediate threat to your kingdom is gone. The Mamluk menace has been utterly destroyed. But as you watch Kit Booker's Mongols execute the thousands of prisoners with chilling efficiency, a cold dread settles in your heart. You approach this as an alliance of equals. You see now that you were wrong. Your king, Baldwin III, stands beside Kit Booker, but the Mongol general's gaze is already looking south, towards Egypt and Mecca. Your kingdom was a tool, a useful and effective one, but a tool nonetheless. You have won the war for survival. Outremer is secure as it has not been in a century. But you have exchanged a familiar enemy for a patron whose power is godlike and whose motives are utterly alien. You have bound the destiny of your small hybrid Christian kingdom to the vast, world-spanning, and ultimately pagan Mongol Empire. You look east, across the Syrian desert, and you feel not the relief of victory, but the profound anxiety of the unknown. You have survived, but you are no longer the masters of your own fate. The year is 1300. The scent of steel and horse sweat that defined your father's world has faded, replaced by something far more complex. Standing on the balcony of your family's residence in Tripoli, you breathe it in. It is the dust of parchment from the scriptoriums, the sharp tang of ink, mixed with the sweet perfume of spices from the caravanserais below. It is the salty air of the harbour, thick with the chatter of a dozen languages, the harsh Genoese dialect, the fluid Greek of Byzantine merchants, the guttural tones of Armenian traders, and the soft, rolling Arabic of the local Christians. This is the scent of peace, a peace bought with your father's sword and secured by the terrifying, distant authority of the great Khan in Tabriz. You are not a warrior. You are a student at the Domus Sapientiae, the House of Wisdom, an institution that would have been unthinkable 2 generations ago. Your kingdom, Outremer, no longer looks inward, nervously guarding its mountain passes. The Mongol alliance, which began as a desperate gamble, has transformed into the bedrock of your world. The Ilkhanate of Persia, Hulagu's legacy, has created a vast zone of stability stretching from the Euphrates to the Indus. The Pax Mongolica means the roads are safe, and on those roads travel not just silk and porcelain, but something infinitely more valuable, knowledge. Tripoli has become the nexus. It is the funnel through which the accumulated wisdom of the East pours into the Latin world, and the lens through which the West's own burgeoning ideas are focused. You walk through the arched colonnades of the House of Wisdom, a real-world anchor that in our timeline was a famed library destroyed by the Mamluks, but here has been reborn and expanded into a university. In one chamber, a Nestorian monk who has travelled from the Ilkhanate capital meticulously translates a Syriac commentary on Aristotle, a text thought lost for centuries. In another, a Jewish scholar from Toledo, having fled the growing intolerance of Castile, debates points of medicine with a Greek Orthodox physician, cross-referencing the works of Galen with the encyclopedic canon of medicine by the Persian master Ibn Sina, whom you call Avicenna. This is your education. You learn Latin from a Frankish priest, of course, but you also study Arabic to read the great mathematicians like Al-Khwarizmi, whose work on algebra has revolutionized accounting in the merchant houses of the city. You study Greek to read Plato, unfiltered by translation. Your world is not one of singular, dogmatic truth, but a vibrant, chaotic marketplace of ideas. This is the great intellectual flowering of your age, a Levantine Renaissance that precedes the Italian one by a century, and it is driven by one thing: pragmatism. This is the unexpected twist of your reality. The scholars of Tripoli are not pursuing knowledge for its own sake, nor are they obsessed with the aesthetics of classical antiquity, as the later Florentines will be. They are searching for practical solutions to the unique problems of your kingdom. How do you govern a state with 5 major Christian denominations, a significant Jewish population, and Druze and Alawite minorities in the mountains? You translate the legal codes of Justinian, but you also study the Islamic concept of the dhimmi and the administrative techniques of the Persian Empire to create a complex, layered system of communal autonomy under the king's law. How do you feed a growing population in an arid land? You discard inefficient Frankish farming methods and adopt the advanced irrigation and crop rotation techniques described in Arabic agronomical texts, turning the coastal plains into a marvel of productivity. Your greatest professors are not theologians, but engineers and doctors. Using principles of geometry gleaned from Euclid and Arabic sources, they are redesigning the aqueducts that feed Acre and Tyre. The Hospitaller Order's Great Hospital in Tripoli is the finest medical institution in the world, a place where Frankish surgical techniques meet Byzantine diagnostic methods and Arab pharmacology. The knowledge you gather is not an abstract luxury. It is the very sinew of your kingdom's survival and prosperity. But this frantic acquisition of knowledge from every conceivable source creates a profound ethical tension, a schism in the soul of Outremer. This year, the Pope has sent a Dominican inquisitor, Brother Guillaume, to inspect the spiritual health of the kingdom. You see him in the halls of the House of Wisdom, a stark figure in black and white, his face a mask of pinched horror. He does not see intellectual curiosity. He sees heresy. He sees Christian students studying the works of Ibn Rushd, or Averroes, the Muslim philosopher who argued that reason and faith were separate, coexisting truths. To Guillaume, this is poison. You are present for the confrontation. Brother Guillaume stands before the Prince of Tripoli, Bohemond VII, a man whose ancestors fought and died for the cross. The Dominican holds up a translated copy of Averroes' commentary on Aristotle. "My Lord Prince," he says, his voice ringing with righteous fury, "this is the work of an infidel. It teaches that the soul is not immortal, that the world is eternal, and that truth can be found outside the revelation of Holy Mother Church. You allow this filth to be taught to the sons of nobles? This is not a Christian kingdom. It is a library of heresy, a new Alexandria waiting for the fire of God's judgment." Prince Bohemond, a man educated in this new world, does not flinch. He is not a warrior king in the mould of his great-grandfather, but a statesman and a scholar. He takes the book from Guillaume's hand. "Brother Guillaume," he replies, his voice calm and dangerously quiet, "the man who wrote this book was a genius. The knowledge in it, when separated from his theological errors, helps us understand the world God has made. The Saracen mind that perfected the astrolabe is the same mind that allows our ships to navigate more safely. The Saracen mind that mastered algebra is the same mind that allows my treasurer to keep the kingdom from bankruptcy. We learned siege warfare from the Byzantines and medicine from the Arabs. We learned how to survive in these lands from the Maronites. Our very existence is a testament to the fact that wisdom does not carry a baptismal certificate." He gestures to the bustling port, visible from the high window. "We are not a monastery in Cluny, brother. We are a fortress on a precipice. We will use every tool at our disposal to remain here. We will take the Arabs' numbers, the Greeks' logic, the Persians' poetry, and we will bind it all in service to the Kingdom of Outremer and to Christ. We will not burn books. We will read them, learn from them, and use their knowledge to make ourselves stronger. That is our way." Brother Guillaume stands defeated, not by force of arms, but by a logic he cannot comprehend, a pragmatism that feels to him like a betrayal. He will return to Rome with tales of a worldly, corrupt, and dangerously syncretic kingdom, a place where the lines between Christian and infidel have blurred in the pursuit of knowledge. You walk away from that chamber with a new understanding of your identity. You are not simply a Frank in the East. You are something new, a Levantine. Your mind is a hybrid, just like your kingdom. You feel a surge of pride, but also a sliver of apprehension. The prince's defiance has drawn a line. Your intellectual awakening has set you on a different path from the rest of Christendom. The knowledge that makes you strong also makes you suspect. The library that is your glory is, in the eyes of Rome, your greatest sin. And you know with the certainty of a well-proven theorem that a day of reckoning will come. The heat in the great hall of Acre's Hospitaller Citadel is suffocating. It is the summer of 1439, and you are not a scholar or a soldier, but something in between, a diplomat of the church, an auxiliary bishop whose true ministry is the preservation of the kingdom. The air, thick with the scent of beeswax candles and the sweat of 100 anxious men, feels heavier than stone. Your world has changed since the days of the Mongol alliance. The Ilkhanate is a memory, shattered by internal decay, and the conversion of its Khans to Islam. Out of the west, a new power has risen from the ashes of the old Seljuk Sultanate, the Ottoman Turks. Their shadow now falls across Anatolia, their gaze fixed on the ultimate prize, Constantinople, the queen of cities, the second Rome. That is why these men are here. You look across the hall at the delegations, a living museum of Christian division. There, in silks that have seen better days, is the Emperor of the Romans himself, John VIII Palaiologos. His face a mask of weary nobility. He is a ghost at a banquet, the ruler of a city and little else, and his eyes plead for a salvation he cannot command. Beside him sits the Patriarch of Constantinople, his magnificent white beard seeming to contain all the ancient pride and grievances of the Orthodox world. Then there are the papal legates, led by Cardinal Bessarion, a Greek who chose the Roman path, his mind as sharp as a razor, his faith in the necessity of union absolute. And scattered amongst them are the others, severe Armenian bishops, stoic Jacobite patriarchs, and your own people, the Maronite lords of the mountains, sitting alongside the Frankish barons of the coast. You are here to heal the wound that has bled Christendom for 400 years. You are here to end the Great Schism. The formal pretext is theology. The real reason is the Ottoman canon. For weeks, the Council of Acre, a council that in another world would have convened in Florence and failed, has been a predictable disaster. You have listened to the endless, circular debates. The Latins, backed by centuries of scholastic logic, insist upon the filioque, the clause in the creed stating that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. To them, it is a necessary clarification of divine truth. The Greeks, backed by the authority of the early Church Fathers, condemn it as an arrogant, unilateral addition to the sacred text. To them, it is the original sin of the papacy. They argue over the nature of purgatory, the use of leavened or unleavened bread in the Eucharist, and above all, papal supremacy. Does the Bishop of Rome hold supreme authority? A direct mandate from St. Peter to rule the entire Church? Or is he merely the primus inter pares, the first among equals in a brotherhood of patriarchs? On these rocks of dogma, every attempt at reconciliation has shattered. The emperor grows more desperate, the patriarch more intransigent, the cardinal more frustrated. This is where your world's history asserts its unique, brutal logic. Your kingdom, Outremer, is the host of this council for a reason. You are not a supplicant like the Byzantine emperor. You are a power. You have your own armies, your own fleets, your own thriving universities and trade networks. You are Latin, yes, but of a different sort. You have lived for 2 centuries side by side with these other faiths. You have learned that survival demands a certain flexibility that a Roman cardinal, secure in his Italian palace, cannot comprehend. Your king, Amalric V, a man more comfortable in the library than the saddle, finally rises to speak. His voice is not loud, but it cuts through the stale air of the hall with the clarity of a bell. "My lords," he begins, addressing the entire assembly, We have spent a month debating the procession of the Holy Spirit. It is a profound mystery, worthy of our finest minds. But I must inform you that 3 days ago, an Ottoman fleet raided a village not 10 leagues from my own castle at Tyre. While we have been defining the precise nature of the Trinity, they have been burning homes and carrying Christians into slavery. They did not pause to ask the villagers their opinion on the filioque clause before putting them to the sword. A stunned silence falls over the hall. King Amalric gestures to the great window, which looks out over the harbour, a forest of masts from Venice, Genoa, and your own Levantine merchant fleet. We in Outremer have learned a hard truth. Unity is not the child of agreement. It is the child of necessity. Your Majesty, he says, nodding to the Byzantine Emperor, you need soldiers and ships. Your Holiness. He inclines his head to the papal legates. You need to prevent the crescent from replacing the cross on the dome of Hagia Sophia. And you, the venerable patriarchs of the East, you need to ensure your flocks have a future that is not lived under the dhimmi's tax or the janissary's lash. I therefore propose we put aside that which we cannot resolve and embrace that which we must. Let us not seek a unity of theology, which has eluded us for centuries. Let us forge a unity of purpose. This is the moment the world turns. What your king proposes is radical, a piece of Levantine pragmatism that borders on heresy. It is the unexpected twist born of your unique history. He proposes the Pact of Acre. Its terms are starkly political. The Pope of Rome will be recognized by all as the primus inter pares, the first among equals, the spiritual head of the Christian princes. In return, the Pope will formally recognize the autonomy of the Eastern Patriarchates and the legitimacy of their rites and traditions, including the non-inclusion of the filioque. The core theological disputes are not resolved. They are formally set aside, declared to be matters of legitimate regional tradition and ongoing scholarly debate, not church-dividing dogma. In exchange for this mutual recognition, a permanent Holy League is formed. A joint fleet, funded by papal tithes, Venetian and Genoese trade taxes, and the wealth of Outremer, will be established to patrol the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean. An attack on one signatory of the pact, be it Constantinople, Acre, or the Venetian Isle of Crete, is declared an attack on all. The ethical tension is palpable. The papal legates are aghast. This is not the submission of the schismatics they were sent to secure. It is a political treaty that leaves the fundamental issue of papal authority unresolved. The Orthodox bishops are deeply suspicious, seeing a Latin trick, a Trojan horse designed to win with armies what they could not win with arguments. But necessity, as your king said, is the mother of all things. The emperor, seeing his last best hope for survival, agrees. Cardinal Bessarion, a pragmatist at heart, realizes that a limited victory is better than a total defeat and persuades his fellow cardinals. The Patriarch of Constantinople, under immense pressure from his emperor, grudgingly gives his assent. You witness the ceremony in the Cathedral of St. John. The Pope's legate and the Patriarch of Constantinople exchange a kiss of peace. It is stiff, formal, devoid of any genuine warmth. It is not the emotional reunion of long-lost brothers. It is the handshake of two generals agreeing to face a common enemy. The schism is healed, but the soul of the Church is forever changed. It is no longer a body defined by a single monolithic truth, but a federation held together by a shared fear. You have averted a civil war of the soul. You have created a united Christian front. You have given Constantinople a fighting chance. But as you walk out into the brilliant Levantine sun, you cannot escape a profound sense of disquiet. You have helped forge a church where theological truth is negotiable. where the mysteries of faith are subordinate to the realities of statecraft. You have saved Christendom, perhaps, but you wonder if you have lost something of its soul in the bargain. The map spread across the great oak table in your father's counting house in Acre is the most valuable object your family possesses. It is not gilded, nor is it illuminated by a master's hand. It is a working document, a palimpsest of vellum and parchment, stained with wine and sweat, covered in annotations in Latin, Genoese dialect, Greek, and Arabic. To a stranger, it would be an indecipherable mess. To you, it is the source of all your wealth and power. The year is 1492. In another world, a Genoese captain under the flag of Castile is at this very moment charting a mad course west across an endless ocean, searching for a phantom passage to the Indies. In your world, that man is a fool, a dreamer chasing a solution to a problem that does not exist. You trace a line with your finger. It starts here, in Acre, and runs northeast to Aleppo, then east to the great caravan city of Tabriz in Persia. From there, it forks. One branch continues east, following the old Silk Road towards the domains of the Timurid princes, successors to the Mongol Khans. The other, the more profitable one, snakes south to the port of Hormuz on the Persian Gulf. This map, and the knowledge it contains, is why the age of discovery has not happened. Why would your father, or any sane merchant in Genoa or Venice, fund a suicidal Atlantic voyage when the road to Cathay and the wealth of the Indies lies open? Your kingdom, Outremer, is the gate, and you hold the key. The Mamluk Sultanate is a bad memory, erased by the Mongol tide. The Ottoman Turks are a formidable threat, but the Pact of Acre has forged a Christian naval shield in the Aegean, bottling them up. They control Anatolia and the Balkans, but they do not control the world's trade. You do. The flow of spices, silk, gems, and porcelain from the east no longer trickles into Europe. It floods through your ports, a torrent of wealth that makes the lords of Outremer and their Italian partners unimaginably rich. The heroes of your age are not daring sea captains. They are men like your chief factor in Tabriz, a man named Minas of Sis. He is an Armenian, his family having served your Genoese house for 3 generations. Minas speaks 6 languages, can calculate currency exchanges in his head, and knows which tribal chieftain requires a gift of Frankish steel, and which can be persuaded with Venetian glass. He is not an explorer. He is a master of logistics. His letters, which arrive every 2 months with the westbound caravan, are not tales of adventure, but meticulous reports on the price of pepper in Gujarat, the political stability of the Ak-Koyunlu Federation, and the safety of the wells along the desert road to Hormuz. These men are the true navigators of your world. You look at a new report that has just arrived. It details the pioneering journey of a Russian merchant, a man named Afanasy Nikitin, who recently travelled all the way to India and back. In another history, his journey is a footnote, an isolated curiosity. In yours, it is a vital piece of commercial intelligence. His account, A Journey Beyond the 3 Seas, is not read as a travelogue, but as a business prospectus. He details the customs duties in the Bahmani Sultanate, the quality of the diamonds in Golconda, the dangers of pirates off the Indian coast. Your father is already planning to send an agent to follow Nikitin's path, not to conquer or convert, but to establish a permanent trading post, a fondouk, in Calicut. This overland strategy is complemented by a second route, a testament to Levantine ingenuity. With Mamluk Egypt gone, the Red Sea is no longer a hostile barrier. The king of Outremer, in alliance with the ancient Christian kingdom of Ethiopia, has established a fortified naval base on the Darlak archipelago. From there, your galleys protect a stream of merchant ships that sail from the Egyptian port of Idhab down the Red Sea and across the Indian Ocean. It is a long and perilous journey, but it is yours. The wealth of the Orient now flows through two arteries, and both pump their riches directly into the heart of your kingdom. This entire enterprise is built on a foundation that would seem shockingly cynical to your crusading ancestors. This is the unexpected twist of your commercial empire. It is a masterpiece of multicultural pragmatism. Your partners are not fellow Latins, but anyone who can get the job done. Nestorian Christians, with their ancient communities scattered along the Silk Road, are your most reliable agents. Jewish bankers in Tripoli and Tyre manage the complex financial instruments required to fund the caravans. You even employ Muslim guides and guards, men who know the desert and its tribes, paying them so well that their loyalty to your coin outweighs their devotion to their faith. The only god worshipped with any true fervour along the trade routes is the god of profit, and the profits are staggering. You turn to the ledger beside the map, a shipment of cloves, purchased in the Moluccas by your agents, transported by sea to Hormuz, carried by camel to Tripoli, and then shipped to Venice, has yielded a return of 2,000%. This single transaction could fund a small army for a year. This is the source of your kingdom's strength. It is what pays for the mercenaries, forges the cannons, and builds the great fleets that keep the Ottomans at bay. But as you stare at the numbers, you feel the cold touch of the ethical tension that underpins your world. This wealth is not created. It is siphoned. You are middlemen, parasites of geography. You produce nothing of value yourselves. Only the security and logistics that allow goods to pass from one hand to another. Your society is transforming. The sons of knights no longer dream of liberating the Holy Sepulchre. They dream of a factor's position in Tabriz. The warrior ethos of your ancestors is being replaced by the calculating shrewdness of the merchant. Piety is still performed, but commerce is what truly commands the souls of men. A note at the bottom of the ledger catches your eye. A caravan was lost a month ago, ambushed by Baluchi tribesmen in the Persian desert. 20 men dead, and a fortune in silk vanished into the sand. It is a reminder of how fragile this all-island, your prosperity rests on the stability of a dozen petty thrones and the shifting loyalties of peoples you will never meet. You are masters of a global trade network, but you control almost none of it directly. A civil war in Persia, a drought in the desert, a new, more zealous imam in Arabia. Any of these could sever your arteries of commerce overnight. You are living in a golden age, but it is a brittle one. A Portuguese captain, it is rumoured, recently petitioned the King of France for ships to sail around Africa. He was laughed out of court. Why would a king invest in such a folly when he can simply buy shares in a Levantine caravan and reap a guaranteed reward? The impulse to explore, to push into the unknown, has been throttled by the sheer, overwhelming success of the known. The world feels smaller, its paths well trod, its mysteries reduced to entries in a merchant's ledger. You have built a gilded cage, and you have locked yourselves inside it, convinced it is a fortress. The great, unmapped oceans remain silent, their secrets safe, their potential undiscovered, because your world has forgotten how to ask the question. You are a long way from home. The year is 1453, and the deck of the galley beneath your feet pitches in the choppy waters of the Bosphorus. The air does not smell of the cedar and salt of Lebanon. It smells of sulphur, wood smoke, and the cold, metallic scent of fear. You are the captain of a war galley from the Kingdom of Outremer, part of the Holy League fleet sent to answer the desperate pleas of Constantinople. Your family is Genoese by name, but you are a child of the Levant. You speak the Genoese dialect of your merchant ancestors, but it is flavoured with the French of the Frankish court and the Arabic of the Acre marketplace. You have come here to save the Second Rome. For 55 days, you have watched the siege. You have seen the greatest army the world has ever known, 250,000 men, throw themselves against the ancient Theodosian walls. And you have seen the walls hold. This is not the lonely, foredoomed defence of another history. The city is not starving, its defenders not a pitiful handful. Your galleys, alongside those of Venice and the Knights of Rhodes, broke the initial Ottoman blockade and brought in grain and reinforcements. The great iron chain across the Golden Horn is not the city's only shield. The Holy League fleet is a hornet's nest waiting outside it, raiding the Ottoman flanks, forcing their navy to remain on the defensive. On the walls, it is the same story. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, fights like a common soldier, but he is not alone. He is flanked by Venetian crossbowmen, Genoese engineers, and 1,000 of your own knights and sergeants from Outremer, men whose fathers and grandfathers fought the Turk in Anatolia and the Balkans. The Pact of Acre, forged in your kingdom a century ago, is not just a piece of paper. It is a living, breathing, bleeding reality on these crumbling ramparts. But the man on the other side is not a mere conqueror. He is a force of history. The Sultan Mehmed is only 21 years old, but he possesses the ambition of an Alexander and the intellect of an Aristotle. He has done the impossible, dragging his ships overland on greased logs to bypass your chain and get a fleet into the Golden Horn. And he has Urban, the Hungarian engineer, a Christian who offered his services to the emperor first, was turned away for lack of funds. So he went to Mehmed, who paid him in gold and gave him unlimited resources. The result is the basilica, a cannon so vast it feels like a blasphemy against God and nature. You have heard its voice every day, a thunderclap that shakes the sea. Each stone ball, it fires another death knell for 1,000 years of empire. Today, the final assault has come. From your position on the water, the city is an island of defiance in a sea of fire and steel. The roar is inhuman, a constant, deafening cataract of sound. The pounding of Mehmed's great bombards, the shriek of trumpets, the rhythmic thunder of thousands of Janissary war drums, and the terrifying, unified cry of Allahu Akbar as another wave of attackers hits the walls. You watch the flashes of Greek fire, the secret weapon of the Byzantines, as it spews from the sea walls, turning Ottoman ships and soldiers into screaming torches. For a moment, you believe. You allow yourself the sin of hope. You see the discipline of the Frankish knights, the resilience of the Greek militia, the grim professionalism of the Venetians, and you think, we can hold. It is not enough. No amount of courage can stand against the sheer mathematics of the assault. A postern gate, the Kirkeporta, is left unbolted by retreating Genoese. A small band of Janissaries gets in. They are not the first, but they raise the Sultan's banner on a tower, and the sight spreads panic along the line. At the same moment, the basilica smashes a great breach near the gate of St. Romanus. The Janissaries, the elite slave soldiers of the Sultan, men raised from birth for this single purpose, pour through the gap. They do not falter. They do not break. They are a river of death, and the walls are finally breached. The defense collapses into a series of desperate, heroic last stands. The Emperor Constantine XI, last of the Roman emperors, tears the imperial insignia from his armour and plunges into the fray, disappearing into the tide of history. From the harbour, you see the Ottoman flag spreading along the walls like a bloodstain. The battle is lost. The city has fallen. You prepare to give the order to retreat, to save the fleet to fight another day. But a message arrives from the Sultan himself, carried under a flag of truce. He offers terms not to the city, which is his by right of conquest, but to the Holy League. Leave now, unmolested, and he will not pursue. It is a tactician's choice. He wants your professional armies gone so he can deal with the city. Your admiral, a grim, hospitaller knight, accepts. Defeat is bitter, but survival is a weapon. A week later, you return to the city as part of a diplomatic mission to ransom captive knights. You expect to find a ruin, a smouldering shell filled with horror and lamentation. You find something far more unsettling. The 3 days of plunder were terrible, but they were controlled. And now, an eerie order has been restored. Mehmed's janissaries patrol the streets, not as looters, but as police. You are taken to the Hagia Sophia. You expect to see it converted into a mosque, its mosaics plastered over, its Christian soul extinguished. Instead, you find the Sultan himself, standing under the great dome, staring up at the golden mosaic of the Christ Pantocrator. With him is the Orthodox Patriarch, Gennadios Scholarios, who had been taken prisoner. He is not in chains. He is dressed in his full patriarchal vestments. Mehmed turns to him, his voice echoing in the vast, silent space. He speaks not of conversion, but of continuity. He tells Gennadios that he will remain patriarch, that the Christians of the city will be granted freedom of worship and the right to their own laws and courts. He is not destroying the city's religious life. He is making himself its protector. And then he says the words that remake the world. He does not proclaim himself Ghazi, the holy warrior. He proclaims himself Caesar I Rum, Caesar of Rome. This is the unexpected twist, the move of terrifying genius born from the altered reality of your world. Facing a united Christendom, with your powerful Kingdom of Outremer on his flank, Mehmed knows he cannot afford a permanent, existential war with all of Christianity. Simple conquest would guarantee a crusade that, unlike those of the past, would be organized, funded, and relentless. So he chooses not to destroy his enemy, but to absorb him. He is not the slayer of the Roman Empire, he is its heir. He co-opts its history, its legitimacy, its very name. This is the ethical tension you now face. A choice more agonizing than martyrdom. You came here to die for a Christian emperor. Mehmed does not offer you death. He offers you a place. He is inviting the Christians of the East to see him not as a foreign conqueror, but as the new emperor, a strong ruler who can provide the stability the pathetic Paleologoi could not. He is telling the world that the center of the Roman Empire is still Constantinople. But the man on the throne is now a Turk. He has positioned the Pope in Rome not as the leader of the Christian world, but as the bishop of a rebellious Italian province. As you leave the Hagia Sophia, you see Ottoman soldiers scrubbing the blood from the marble floors, but the golden cross still glitters on the dome above. Mehmed has not extinguished the light of the Second Rome. He has captured it, placed it within his own lantern, and now wields it for his own purposes. The fall of Constantinople has not ended an empire. It has transformed it into something new, something stronger, and something infinitely more dangerous to the Christian kingdoms of the West. The air in the Jordan Valley is not dry and dusty as it is in our history. It is thick with the sweet, cloying scent of molasses, carried on the breeze from the crushing mills. The year is 1550, and you are not a knight, nor a merchant, nor a scholar. You are an overseer, a man of power and wealth, a baron whose fiefdom is not measured in lands, but in rows of cane. Your ancestors defended this land With swords, you defend it with ledgers and the unwavering discipline of your workforce. This is the Kingdom of Outremer, an economic powerhouse built on sugar, and you are one of its architects. In the days after the Pact of Acre and the fall of Constantinople, your kingdom faced a new reality. The Ottoman Empire, now under the formidable Suleiman the Magnificent, was a land power, but its heart was in Anatolia and the Balkans. Your trade routes were secure, but you could not indefinitely rely on being a pure entrepot for Eastern goods. You needed to produce something of value yourself, something that Europe craved, something that would make your narrow strip of land indispensable. You found it in sugar. The real-world anchor here is the fertile soil of the Jordan Valley, stretching south from the Sea of Galilee. In our history, it was a productive agricultural region, but never reached its full potential. In your world, it is a vast industrial agricultural complex, a green ribbon of prosperity carved from the arid land. Your engineers, drawing on centuries of accumulated knowledge from Roman, Byzantine, and Arab irrigation techniques, redesigned the ancient wadis and springs. They built a network of canals and aqueducts, fed by the Jordan River itself, transforming the valley floor into a tropical paradise in miniature. The sugarcane, originally brought from India, flourishes here. The climate is perfect, the water abundant, and the market insatiable. Europe, increasingly wealthy from your Levantine trade, developed an insatiable sweet tooth. Sugar was no longer a medicine or a luxury. It was a staple, and you supplied it. Your kingdom is dotted with sugar refineries, their tall chimneys belching white smoke into the azure sky, their great water wheels turning the heavy grinding stones day and night. You stand on the veranda of your manor house, overlooking hundreds of acres of waving green cane. Below, lines of workers move through the fields, their backs bent under the Levantine sun, their hoes flashing. These are not slaves brought from Africa or the New World, for in this timeline, the demand for sugar is met locally, and the routes for African slaves were never opened on such a grand scale by Europeans. These are your serfs. This is the unexpected twist of your agricultural revolution. Your kingdom, born of crusading ideals, has evolved into a society that eerily mirrors the manorial system of medieval Europe, but with a unique Levantine flavour. Most of the cultivators are Maronite and other local Christians, but there are also Druze, Alawite, and even some Jewish communities bound to the land. After centuries of a strong monarchy and a constant need for a stable agricultural base to feed the military and urban centres, the feudal system here has solidified. The king granted vast estates in the Jordan Valley to loyal Frankish and Maronite families, creating a class of powerful sugar barons. In return for protection and a plot of land, the cultivators are bound to your estate, owing you labour, taxes, and military service. They cannot leave without your permission. Their children inherit their status. The ethical tension here is stark, a bitter aftertaste to the valley's sweetness. You are a Christian baron, yet you profit from a system of inherited bondage. You provide security, justice, and sustenance, but you also wield absolute authority. When a family attempts to flee your estate for the perceived freedom of Tripoli, you dispatch your men-at-arms to bring them back. Their crime is not theft, but desertion. They are your property, not in the chattel sense of slaves, but in the sense that their labour belongs to you, their destiny tied to your land. You justify it with centuries of precedent. The Crusader States, even in our timeline, had a complex system of local populations bound to the land. You argue that the Maronites have always had their fellahin, their peasants tied to the land, their own forms of communal subservience. You point to the prosperity. Your serfs, though unfree, are fed, housed, and protected. They are not starving. Their children are not dying in droves. Their lives are hard, yes, but they are predictable. Secure in a region that has known centuries of chaos. You compare your system to the nascent colonial ventures in the Americas, whispered about by a few fringe figures who still try to find a sea route to India. Their talk of extracting resources from virgin lands with enslaved populations strikes you as utterly inefficient and morally repugnant. Our system, you tell yourself, is rooted in tradition, in mutual obligation, however unequal. It is a stable social order designed for survival, not rapacious extraction. Yet, as you watch the sun set over the distant mountains of Transjordan, painting the sky in shades of orange and blood, you cannot shake the feeling that something fundamental has been lost. The ideal of the free Frankish warrior defending the Holy Land for God has been replaced by the reality of the Christian landowner, whose wealth is built on the sweat of unfree labour. The crusading zeal has been sublimated into the disciplined pursuit of profit. A steward approaches you, bowing respectfully. "My lord, the accounts for the last harvest are complete. We have exceeded last year's output by 15%. The king will be pleased, and our merchants in Venice anticipate record prices." You nod, a slow, weary gesture. The numbers are good. The kingdom is strong. You have achieved economic independence, secured your place in the global economy, and built a stable, prosperous society. But at what cost? You have created a system that is efficient, productive, and utterly rigid. It is a fortress, yes, but its foundations are built on the denial of individual liberty. And you wonder, in the quiet of the Levantine evening, if a society that binds its own people to the earth can truly call itself free. The only sound in your small, stone-walled office is the rhythmic click of ivory beads on a wooden frame. It is the sound of an abacus, the primary instrument of your faith. You are a clerk brother of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, but you have not held a sword in your life. Your weapons are the double-entry ledger and the bill of exchange. The year is 1610, and you are a junior analyst in the Tower of the Keys, the great octagonal headquarters of the Templar order that dominates the skyline of Acre. From the narrow window, you can see the forest of masts in the harbour. But your concern is not with ships, but with the abstract value they represent. In our world, your order was brutally suppressed 300 years ago. Its knights burned at the stake, its wealth confiscated by a greedy French king and a compliant pope. But in your world, that great act of state-sponsored larceny never happened. When King Philip the Fair of France, deep in debt to the order, made his move in 1307, the world was different. The Kingdom of Outremer stood as a powerful, independent state, and this citadel in Acre was the order's true centre of gravity, not the Paris temple. The Pope, his authority balanced by the Eastern patriarchs since the Pact of Acre, could not be so easily bullied. The Grand Master at the time, Jacques de Molay, received Philip's threats not as a cowering debtor, but as the head of a sovereign power. He laughed. He transferred the order's liquid assets from Paris to the impregnable vaults beneath your feet and called the French king's bluff. When Philip arrested the Templars in France, the Grand Master, safe in Acre, issued a Europe-wide financial decree. Every letter of credit issued by the Templar network, the very foundation of international trade, was declared void in the Kingdom of France. French merchants were ruined overnight. The great trade fairs of Champagne collapsed. Philip, facing a rebellion from his own enraged bourgeoisie, was forced into a humiliating reversal. The French affair, as your histories call it, was not the end of the Templars. It was their apotheosis. From that day forward, the order changed. Its military wing, the Knights of the Sword, still exists. They are the best equipped, best trained fighting force in the world. A formidable private army that guards your caravans and fortresses. But they are now the security division of a much larger enterprise. The true power lies with your branch. The Clark brothers, the bankers and administrators who form the Society of the Keys. You have taken the Order's original, brilliant invention, a system where a pilgrim could deposit money in London and receive a letter of credit to withdraw it in Jerusalem, and expanded it into the world's first truly global financial network. This is the unexpected twist of your survival. The holy warriors have become the planet's moneylenders. Your real-world anchor is this very system. A merchant in Lisbon wishes to buy spices from a Levantine trader in Tyre. Instead of risking shipping gold bullion, he deposits his ducats at the Lisbon preceptory. He is given a coded vellum script. The Levantine merchant presents that script at the bank in Tyre and receives his payment minus the order's commission. The physical gold never moves. Only paper does. Through this system, you have become the central nervous system of the world's economy. You charge interest, a practice officially forbidden as usury, but you circumvent this with clever fees for risk and currency exchange. You are too big to fail and too vital to condemn. You are examining a portfolio of loans. The King of Spain owes the order 8 million ducats, the security for which is the next 5 years of silver shipments from the New World. A world whose exploitation was, ironically, funded by one of your order's few speculative loans a century ago. The Holy Roman Emperor is pleading for a loan to fight the Ottomans. You have marked his application for denial. His finances are a mess. He is a bad credit risk. The war is a matter for the Holy League, not the order's balance sheet. This is the ethical tension that defines your existence. You have all taken vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. You personally own nothing but your simple robes and your abacus. You sleep in a communal dormitory and eat in a refectory. But the order you serve is the wealthiest entity on earth. You have rationalized this paradox with a new theology of finance. You are not owners, but stewards. The wealth is not yours. It belongs to God. You are merely its managers, tasked with using it to protect and strengthen Christendom. But your definition of strengthening Christendom has become dangerously pragmatic. It means stability. It means predictable returns. It means funding princes who are reliable, not necessarily the most pious. A ledger, you have come to believe, is a holier text than the Gospels, for its numbers do not lie. An English envoy, a florid man named Sir Giles, is ushered into your superior's office. You are present to take notes. He has come to beg for a loan to fund his king's war against the rebellious Scots. Your superior, Brother Thomas, a man whose thin lips have never formed a smile, listens patiently. The King of England's cause is just, Sir Giles pleads. These Scottish Calvinists are heretics who defy their rightful sovereign. Brother Thomas looks at the parchment in front of him, not at the man. Your king has defaulted on his last 3 loans. The wool trade, which was to be his collateral, is in decline. Scotland has no deep water ports of strategic value to the order, and a prolonged war in the British Isles would disrupt the flow of timber from the Baltic, which we need for our shipyards. The loan is denied. Sir Giles is aghast. But, this is a matter of faith, of royal right. You are the Knights of the Temple. You exist to defend Christian order. We exist to preserve order, Sir Giles. Brother Thomas corrects him, his voice as cold as a vault door. And your king is a destabilizing influence. He is a poor investment. Good day. The Englishman leaves, sputtering with impotent rage. In that moment, you see the truth of your power. You are not a kingdom, but you command kingdoms. You do not have a throne, but you decide who can afford to sit on one. Your allegiance is not to the Pope in Rome or the King in Acre, but to the integrity of your network. Later that day, you are summoned to the Grand Master's chambers at the very top of the tower. The current master, a Genoese named Giovanni Lomellino, is not a warrior. He is a financier of breathtaking genius. You present your own report to him. It is a proposal to covertly fund the Protestant Dutch rebels in their war against Catholic Spain. On its face, it is heresy. But your logic, laid out in neat columns of figures, is impeccable. Spain is too powerful. Its control of New World silver gives it the ability to act without consulting the order. By funding the Dutch, you bleed Spain's resources, distract its armies, and ensure that no single temporal power in Europe can ever grow strong enough to challenge your own financial supremacy. A divided Europe is a manageable Europe. The Grand Master reads your analysis, his finger tracing the projected profits from wartime shipping insurance. He looks up, and his eyes are not those of a monk, but of a predator. A masterful strategy, Brother Clark, he says. See to it. Disperse the funds through our Amsterdam preceptory, and may God forgive us all. You bow and retreat, your heart a cold knot of pride and fear. You have just committed your holy order to funding heretics against the most powerful Catholic king on earth. You have done it not for God, nor for glory, but for market share. You have become the hidden throne behind all others, a power accountable to no one. Your actions guided by the cold, inexorable logic of the bottom line. The sea breeze that slips through the arched windows of your study in Beirut carries the scent of salt and papyrus. It is the year 1525. For the last few years, a storm has been raging in the heart of Europe, a tempest of faith, unleashed by a German monk named Martin Luther. His writings, printed on the new presses that have sprung up in Venice and Tripoli, have finally arrived here, not as contraband tracts smuggled in secret, but as texts to be studied at the University of Beirut, where you are a junior lecturer in theology. You are a new kind of cleric for a new age. Your father was a Maronite scribe, your mother the daughter of a minor Frankish knight. You were educated at the House of Wisdom in Tripoli, where you learned that a question is more valuable than an answer. You read Aquinas and Augustine in the original Latin, but you also read the Church Fathers in their native Greek, and the mystics of the Syriac tradition. You are a priest of the Latin Rite, but your soul is Levantine. To the old guard, the Frankish bishops and the papal nuncio in Acre, Luther is a simple heretic, a boorish German causing a distant political problem for the Holy Roman Emperor. They read his 95 Theses and his condemnations of the Pope and dismissed them with a shrug. They have faced down Ottoman sultans and managed the egos of Eastern patriarchs for centuries. A Saxon monk's tantrum seems a minor affair. They fail to see that the seeds Luther has thrown on the hard soil of Germany have been carried by the wind and have landed here, in the fertile, well-tilled ground of the Levant, where they are beginning to grow into something entirely different. You sit with a circle of like-minded priests and scholars, men of similar mixed heritage and broad education, in the library of Father Elian of Byblos, the intellectual leader of your nascent movement. On the table between you is a copy of Luther's On the Babylonian Captivity of the Church. Elian, a man whose quiet voice belies a formidable intellect, gestures to the text. Luther is right in his diagnosis, he says, but for the wrong reasons. He attacks the papacy for its corruption, its indulgences, its worldliness. These are but symptoms, The disease is distance. The church has forgotten the land. It has become a Roman abstraction, a creature of scholastic philosophy and canon law, a faith filtered through so many layers of European culture that it no longer recognizes its own face. This is the core of your belief. This is what separates your movement from the Protestant Reformation of Europe. When Luther cries sola scriptura, he means that the Bible alone is the source of authority. When you hear those words, they mean something more profound. For you, the scriptures are not just a book, they are a geography. You can stand on the Mount of Beatitudes. You can sail on the Sea of Galilee. You can walk the road to Emmaus. The real-world anchor of your faith is the very soil beneath your feet. Your movement, which your critics derisively call the rationalists, seeks to strip away the European accretions and rediscover the authentic faith of the Holy Land. You are not Protestants. You have no desire to break from the Church. You seek to reform it from within by holding it to a different standard. Not a German monk's interpretation of Paul's letters, but the historical and geographical reality of Christ's life. You question the veneration of relics, not because you are iconoclasts, but because it seems absurd. Why would a sane man in Acre pray to a sliver of wood allegedly from the true cross, imported at great expense from a monastery in France, when the hills of Galilee, where Jesus walked, are 2 days' ride away? You advocate for Mass in the vernacular, not just as a matter of comprehension, but of authenticity. The language of Jesus was a dialect of Aramaic, a cousin to the Syriac still spoken in the Maronite liturgy, and the Arabic spoken in the streets. Latin, to you, is the language of the Roman conquerors, an imperial imposition on the faith. The unexpected twist is that your movement does not become a violent, revolutionary schism. In Germany, princes used Luther's Reformation as a pretext to seize church lands and defy the emperor. Here, the power structures are different. The great wealth is in the hands of the sugar barons and the Templar banks. The church is respected, but it is not the all-powerful feudal landlord it was in Europe. The King of Outremer, finding your arguments intellectually compelling and politically useful as a way to assert his kingdom's independence from Rome, grants your movement his tacit protection, so you are not burned as heretics. You become a tolerated, influential school of thought within the Levantine Church, a permanent, questioning voice that prevents dogma from ever fully hardening. This evening, your quiet revolution faces its greatest challenge. The Archbishop of Tyre, a stern Dominican from a noble Frankish family, has summoned you and Father Elian to his residence. He is not a fool or a fanatic. He is a deeply pious man who fears for the souls of his flock. He does not threaten you with excommunication. He confronts you with a far more potent weapon, the charge of cruelty. You scholars sit in your libraries. He begins, his voice heavy with sorrow, not anger, and you apply the cold logic you learned from the Arabs to the mysteries of our faith. You tell my people that the bones of St. George in their village church are probably not his. You tell them their favourite stories from the Golden Legend are pious fictions. You tell them that their simple, heartfelt prayers to the Virgin are layered with pagan superstition. You are trying to purify their faith, but you are stealing their comfort. This is the ethical tension at the heart of your work. You have always seen yourselves as liberators, freeing the people from the shackles of ignorance and superstition. But the Archbishop frames it differently. A sugar worker in the Jordan Valley, he continues, his eyes locking onto yours. His back is broken from labour, his child is sick with a fever. He kneels before the statue of St. Jude, the patron of lost causes, a statue his grandfather carved, and he finds a moment of hope. He feels that God's mercy is near. What do you offer him instead, Father? A historically contextualized reading of the Gospel of Mark? A lecture on the theological syncretism of the late Roman Empire? You are taking away their crutches, but you are not teaching them how to walk. You are leaving them alone in the dark, with nothing but their reason for company. It is a terrible and merciless thing to do. You have no answer. He has exposed the fundamental paradox of your movement. In your quest for an authentic, rational faith, a faith for the clear-thinking scholars of Beirut and Tripoli, you have neglected the needs of the common people. You are offering a faith of the intellect. But the human heart cries out for mystery, for ritual, for the comforting hand of tradition. However irrational it may seem, you leave the Archbishop's palace in silence. The Reformation in Europe is a war of princes and armies, a battle for the soul of a continent, fought with fire and sword. Your Levantine Reformation is a quieter, more intimate struggle. It is the conflict between the library and the village church, between the enlightened mind and the suffering heart. And as you walk through the darkening streets of Beirut, you are no longer certain which side God is on. The deck of your ship, the Pride of Tyre, lurches as it cuts through the wine-dark sea off the coast of Maria. The year is 1683. The sun is a merciless hammer, and the air is sharp with the taste of salt and the latent promise of gunpowder. You are Commodore Alain de Chatillon, a descendant of the great Crusader princes. But the title is a formality. Your authority comes not from your bloodline, but from your mastery of naval tactics and the 36 cannons that line the decks of your Xebec frigate. Your enemy is not the Saracen or the Turk. Your enemy is the French. You look across the shimmering water at the opposing fleet, the Marine Royale of King Louis XIV of France. They are magnificent and terrifying. Great ships of the line, three-deckers like the Soleil Royal, move with a ponderous, inexorable discipline, their white sails emblazoned with the golden fleur-de-lis. It is a sight that should fill you with pride in the power of the Latin West. Instead, it fills you with a cold, professional dread. You are here to sink them. This is the War of the Two Lions. On your own royal standard, the Lion of Outremer, descended from the arms of Richard the Lionheart, is quartered with the Cross of Jerusalem. The French fly the standard of their Sun King, a monarch whose ambition is as vast and scorching as the star he has chosen for his emblem. The Pope in Rome has pleaded for peace, issuing encyclicals that lament this war between the two most powerful Catholic states on earth. His pleas are ignored. This war has nothing to do with God. It is about money. For 2 centuries, your kingdom and its Italian allies have held a monopoly on the Eastern trade. Louis XIV, guided by his brilliant and ruthless minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, decided to break it. French agents, flush with royal gold, established a fortified trading post at Suez, aiming to create their own Red Sea route, bypassing your ports and your taxes entirely. Your king's response was not a diplomatic protest. He dispatched a squadron of Templar Knights of the Sword. They did not negotiate. They stormed the fortress at Suez, put the garrison to the sword, and burned the facilities to the ground. Louis, enraged by this effrontery, declared war. So now you find yourself in a bizarre and terrible conflict. It is a family feud, a civil war of the Frankish peoples. The captains you face are men with names like your own: Tourville, Forbin, de Valois. They pray to the same saints. Their ancestors may have stood shoulder to shoulder with yours at the Siege of Acre. But today, their guns are aimed at your heart. Your fleet is different from theirs. You do not have the massive ships of the line. Your strength is in your hybrid vessels, like the one beneath your feet. The Xebec frigate is a Levantine invention, a fusion of the Latine-rigged speed of the Barbary corsairs with the square-sailed power and broadside firepower of a European frigate. You cannot stand in a formal line of battle and trade broadsides with the Soleil Royal. You would be annihilated. Your strategy is that of the wolf pack against the bear. You harry, you swarm, you isolate. The signal flag snaps on your mainmast. The attack begins. Your lighter, faster ships dart forward, cutting across the French vanguard, weathering a terrifying but inaccurate broadside. Your target is not the battleships, but the supply convoy they are protecting. This is another feature of your new, modern warfare. You do not seek chivalrous battle. You seek to sever your enemy's logistical spine. Suddenly, from behind the headland of Cape Matapan, a new fleet emerges. They are galleys, scores of them, their oars churning the sea to foam. At their mastheads flies not a cross, but the red banner of the Ottoman Empire, the blood-red flag, bearing the white crescent and star. This is the unexpected twist of your war, the move that has scandalized all of Christendom. Your kingdom, the last Crusader state, has entered into a formal military alliance with the Sultan in Constantinople. The logic is as cold and clear as the stars over the desert. Louis XIV's ambitions are not limited to trade. He dreams of a new French empire in the east, and he is challenging Ottoman authority in Egypt and North Africa. The enemy of your enemy is your friend. The Sultan provides the galleys and the manpower. You and the Templars provide the gold and the naval expertise. It is a pact made in hell, but it is brutally effective. The French are caught by surprise. Their great ships are designed for open sea battles, not for the close-in chaos of a galley attack in coastal waters. The Ottoman galleys, commanded by a fearsome corsair known as Kemal Reis, swarm the French transports. Your own frigates engage the French warships, our guns firing chain shot to shred their rigging, aiming to cripple and immobilize, not to sink. The battle becomes a brutal, swirling melee. The crisp, geometric order of European warfare dissolves into a Levantine knife fight. By evening, you have won a decisive victory. 2 French ships of the line are dismasted and captured, their convoy scattered and taken. As you accept the surrender of the French admiral, a proud nobleman from an ancient Breton family, he looks past you and sees the Ottoman galleys towing their prizes, their crews celebrating with wild cries. His face is a mask of utter contempt and disbelief. You call yourselves Christians? He spits, his voice trembling with rage. You, the heirs of Godefroy de Bouillon. You ally with the infidel against your own kin? You have befouled the cross you wear. This is the ethical tension laid bare on your blood-stained deck. The French admiral sees the world in the old way, Christendom against the rest. You are a product of a different world, a world of complex alliances and brutal pragmatism. My kin, you reply, your voice low and weary, are the men who died on this deck today, defending our homes in Tyre and Beirut. Your king did not come to us with a cross, Admiral. He came with cannons and soldiers to steal the bread from our mouths. He sought to destroy our kingdom not for the glory of God, but for the glory of France and the profit of his merchants. This is not a holy war. It is a trade dispute. And in a trade dispute, you take your allies where you can find them. The Frenchman cannot comprehend this. He sees you as a fallen knight, a traitor to the cause. You see him as a relic, a man clinging to an outdated code of honor in a world that is now governed by the balance of power and the flow of capital. You have won the battle, and your alliance with the Turk has likely saved your kingdom from French domination. But as you look at the captured admiral, a man who in another age you would have called brother, you feel the profound cost of your survival. To protect your unique, hybrid world, you have had to abandon the very ideal that created it. You are no longer Crusaders. You are just another power, fighting for your place in the world, your hands as dirty as everyone else's. The light in Beirut is different from anywhere else in your kingdom. In Acre, the light is hard, reflecting off the white stone of Templar fortresses, a light for soldiers and bankers. In the Qadisha Valley, it is a spiritual light, filtered through the high cedar canopy, a light for saints and hermits. But here, in the year 1750, the light of Beirut is a scholar's light, clear and unforgiving, pouring through the tall, open windows of the salon where you sit, illuminating the motes of dust dancing over stacks of books. It is a light that encourages examination, not veneration. You are a professor of political philosophy at the University of Beirut, an institution that now rivals any in Europe. In your hands you hold a book that has set the salons of Paris ablaze. Baron de Montesquieu, de l'Esprit des Lois, the Spirit of the Laws. It is a work of breathtaking genius, and as you and your colleagues discuss it, you are filled with a peculiar mix of admiration and pity. Admiration for the author's intellect, and pity for his provincialism. He is searching for universal principles. Says Istefan al-Razi, your colleague, a Melkite Greek, whose family has served as royal physicians for a century. He taps a finger on a passage about the separation of powers. He analyzes England, France, Rome. He speaks of climate and geography. But his entire model is predicated on the existence of a demos, a single people, a nation. He is trying to design the perfect house, but he has only ever seen houses with one family living in them. What would he make of a house like ours, where 5 families must share the same roof? This is the fundamental problem that drives the Enlightenment in your world. The great thinkers of Europe, Locke, Montesquieu, and the volatile new voice, Rousseau, are obsessed with the relationship between the individual and the state. They seek to define the rights of man. But for you in Beirut, this is a dangerous abstraction. There is no singular man in Outremer. There is the Maronite man, the Frankish, Latin man, the Greek Orthodox man, the Armenian man, the Jewish man. To speak of them as a homogeneous whole is not just an error, it is an invitation to chaos. Thus, your enlightenment has taken a different path. It is not a quest for abstract universal rights, but a search for the practical mechanics of peace. It is an engineering problem, not a philosophical one. How do you build a state that can contain ancient, deeply felt, and mutually exclusive identities without tearing itself apart? The answer you have developed over the last 50 years is a political philosophy known as confessional federalism. It is the great intellectual export of your kingdom, studied with curiosity and horror in the capitals of Europe. It is the logical endpoint of your entire history. You have formalized the ad hoc arrangements and pragmatic compromises of your ancestors into a coherent, rational system of governance. This is your real-world anchor. The complex, often frustrating system of confessionalism that defines modern Lebanon. But here, it is born not of post-colonial weakness, but of enlightened strength. Under this system, the Kingdom of Outremer is not a unitary state. It is a federation of communities or confessions. The king, still of the old Frankish bloodline of Lusignan, is the head of state, the symbol of unity, the commander of the army. But the real power resides in the reformed Haute Cour, which is no longer a council of feudal barons, but a federal senate. Each recognized confession has a number of seats, weighted by demographic size and historical standing. The Latin Catholic Patriarch, the Maronite Patriarch, the Orthodox Metropolitan of Beirut, the Armenian Catholicos of Sis, and the Chief Rabbi of Acre all sit as of right. They are joined by elected and appointed lay representatives from their communities. This Senate legislates on federal matters: defense, foreign policy, currency, and the all-important management of trade. But everything else, family law, marriage, divorce, inheritance, education, local charities, is delegated to the autonomous governing council of each confession. A Maronite in Tripoli is subject to Maronite religious law in personal matters, enforced by a Maronite court. His Jewish neighbor is subject to halakha, enforced by the Beth Din. The king's law stops at their doorstep. A French diplomat, the Marquis de Vence, a man who prides himself on his friendship with Voltaire, is visiting your salon today. He listens to your explanation of the system, his expression shifting from polite interest to outright disgust. "But this is madness," he exclaims, his voice cutting through the calm of the library. "This is not an enlightened government. It is a meticulously organized medieval ghetto. You are not creating citizens. You are breeding sectarians. Where is the individual? Where is the freedom to be simply a man of Outremer, subject to one law, loyal to one state? You are locking your people into the prisons of their birth." This is the unexpected twist. The Marquis, a standard-bearer of the European Enlightenment, sees your great achievement as a monstrous regression. You, in turn, see his ideals as a recipe for annihilation. "Monsieur le Marquis," you reply calmly, "the citizen you speak of is a wonderful ideal, but he exists only in books and in lands where everyone is, more or less, the same. In France, you can afford to erase old identities to be French first, and a Breton or a Gascon second. You achieved this through centuries of your king's crushing local loyalties. But our identities are not provincial customs. They are our faiths. They are our connection to God and to our ancestors. To ask a Maronite to be a citizen first and a Maronite second is to ask him to save his body by sacrificing his soul. He will not do it. We tried to force unity in the early centuries. It led to rebellion and weakness. We have learned that our strength does not come from pretending we are all the same, but by creating a system where our differences can coexist without violence. The Marquis is unconvinced. He speaks of reason, of a secular state, of a universal humanity that transcends religious superstition. To you, he sounds like a man describing a beautiful painting of a unicorn. It is a lovely idea, but it is not a real animal. The ethical tension of your philosophy, however, walks into your study the next morning. He is your most promising student, a young man named Michael. His father is a Greek Orthodox merchant, his mother an Armenian scholar. He was raised speaking both languages, attending both liturgies. He has fallen in love with a young woman from a noble Frankish family, a Latin Catholic. They wish to marry. And the system, your perfect machine for managing groups, has no place for them. "Which court will marry us, Professor?" he asks, his voice tight with frustration. "The Orthodox court will not recognize her Catholic rights. The Catholic court demands she convert him. The Armenian court has no jurisdiction. We do not wish to convert. We do not wish to abandon our families. We just wish to build a life together. The law has a dozen different ways of defining me. As a Greek, as an Armenian, by my father, by my mother. But it has no way of seeing me as I see myself, just as Michael. And it has no way of seeing us as what we are, just two people in love." His question strikes you with the force of a physical blow. You have spent your life defending and perfecting a system designed to prevent conflict between communities. You have created a masterpiece of social engineering that has kept the peace for generations. And in doing so, you have erased the individual. You have sacrificed the Michaels of your world. the people who live in the borderlands, who blur the lines, who wish to forge an identity of their own. You have no answer for him. You have built a society of magnificent, well-appointed, and secure cages. But they are still cages. As you look at the despair in your brilliant student's eyes, you realize the profound, tragic cost of your Levantine Enlightenment. You have achieved a society of perfect, rational order, and it is a society without a soul. The dispatch arrives by semaphore from the watchtower at Gaza, the message relayed in a frantic cascade of flashing mirrors across the coastal plains to the royal court in Acre. It is the summer of 1798, and the message is impossible. A fleet, not a trading convoy, not an Ottoman squadron, but a fleet so vast it beggars belief. 400 ships. At their mastheads flies a flag you have only seen on pamphlets and political cartoons. A flag of brutal simplicity. 3 vertical bars of blue, white, and red. The French, your world, the Kingdom of Outremer, has spent the last century in a state of delicate, prosperous equilibrium. You are the Chancellor to King Leo IV, a man who, like his kingdom, is old, wise, and profoundly conservative. Your life's work has been the maintenance of this balance, playing the British against the French in the great game of Mediterranean trade, using your Ottoman alliance of convenience to keep the Persians in check, and above all, managing the intricate, clockwork machinery of your own confessional federalist state. The French Revolution was, to you, a distant horror, a cautionary tale of what happens when the mob is unchained and the sacred bonds of society are dissolved. Now, that horror has anchored in your backyard. The fleet bypasses your territory, landing with shocking speed and precision in Egypt, shattering the local Mamluk forces at a battle near the pyramids. The name of their general is on everyone's lips, a name that sounds like a thunderclap. Bonaparte. He is the master of this new, terrifying form of warfare, and he is now your neighbour. The haute cour is in a state of controlled panic. The patriarchs preach sermons against the godless regicides. The sugar barons fear for their trade routes. The Templar bankers, ever pragmatic, quietly begin moving their gold reserves from the coastal vaults to their mountain fortresses. Then, a French frigate arrives at Acre under a flag of truce. It does not carry an ultimatum. It carries an invitation. General Bonaparte requests the honour of a meeting with representatives of the Kingdom of Outremer. He does not wish to be enemies. He wishes to be friends. The king dispatches you. You are to be his eyes and ears, to measure this Corsican upstart, this monster spat out by the revolution. You travel to his headquarters in a commandeered palace in Cairo. The city is tense, but orderly. French soldiers are everywhere. Their blue coats and tricolour cockades a stark intrusion on the ancient landscape. With Bonaparte are his savants, the real-world anchor of his expedition. Engineers, scientists, linguists, and historians, men who are already measuring the Sphinx and cataloguing the treasures of the pharaohs. This is not a crude conquest. It is a methodical, intellectual occupation. You are shown into a large, map-strewn room, and there he island. Napoleon Bonaparte is smaller than you expected. His frame slight, but he radiates an energy so intense it seems to suck the air from the room. His eyes, the colour of slate, miss nothing. He is not a king, not a nobleman. He is something new, a man forged in the crucible of merit and ambition, a pure instrument of will. He does not offer you wine or pleasantries. He walks directly to a map of the Middle East. "Your kingdom, Chancellor," he begins, his French precise and rapid, "is a fascinating anachronism, a feudal Christian monarchy that has mastered the art of multicultural administration, a society of faith that has produced an enlightenment of reason. You have survived for 600 years. I am a student of history. Survival on that scale is not an accident. It is a sign of strength. He is not flattering you, he is assessing you, as a general assesses a key piece of terrain. The Ottoman Empire, he continues, his finger tapping on Constantinople, is a corpse. It pretends to rule Egypt, Syria, Palestine. It rules nothing. It only collects taxes. It is a hollow shell. I have broken it in a single battle. You have been propping it up and fighting it for a century. It is a waste of your energy and your gold. This is the moment the world shifts. You expected a lecture on liberty, equality, and fraternity. You expected the zeal of the revolutionary. Instead, you are confronted with the cold, unblinking gaze of the ultimate realist. I am not here to export the revolution, Chancellor, he says, as if reading your mind. I am here to destroy English power in India. To do that, I need a secure base. I need a stable, powerful, and productive ally in the Levant. You need a final end to the Ottoman threat and a secure northern border. We can give this to each other. This is the unexpected twist. He is not here to conquer you, he is here to court you. He sees in your strange hybrid kingdom not a foe to be vanquished, or a soul to be converted to his revolutionary creed, but the perfect strategic partner. He proposes a formal alliance, the Franco-Levantine axis. His military engineers will help you modernize your fortresses. His artillery officers will train your army in the new tactics of massed firepower. His government will recognize your kingdom's absolute sovereignty over all of Syria and the Holy Land, once it is liberated from the Turks. In return, you will grant the French Navy basing rights in Tyre and Tripoli, and you will become the primary logistical hub for his Army of the Orient. The ethical tension of this proposal is a chasm that threatens to swallow your kingdom whole. You return to Acre and present the terms to the Haute Cour. The chamber erupts. The Latin patriarch slams his fist on the table, declaring that an alliance with the atheistic murderers of King Louis XVI is a mortal sin that will call down the wrath of God. The old Frankish nobles, men who trace their lineage to the First Crusade, are horrified at the thought of siding with Republican radicals against the principle of monarchy itself. But then, the Grand Master of the Templar Order rises to speak. He is not a warrior, but a banker, a man whose faith is in numbers. "Your graces, my lords," he says, his voice dry as parchment. "Our survival has never been a matter of ideological purity. We allied with the Mongol, a pagan. We have allied with the Ottoman, an infidel. We did so to survive. This Bonaparte is a new force in the world. He is offering us what we have dreamed of for centuries, the final destruction of the Turkish power and the secure unification of the Holy Land under our crown. The risk of refusing his offer is annihilation. The risk of accepting is change. The Order has always believed that change, when properly managed, is simply another word for profit. His logic is brutal, cynical, and undeniable. The merchants, the younger military officers, the intellectuals from Beirut, they all see the opportunity. The debate rages for a week. It is a battle for the soul of Outremer. Are you the last bastion of the old world, a living relic of faith and hierarchy, or are you a modern state, ready to make a pact with the future, no matter how terrifying it looks? In the end, pragmatism wins. It always has. The Treaty of Alexandria is signed. You stand on the battlements of Acre a month later, watching the first French military mission arrive. A column of blue-coated soldiers marches into the city, their drums beating a rhythm that is alien to your ears. Their commander is a young, brilliant engineer, a colonel named Jean-Baptiste Kleber. He is already talking to your master of ordnance about redesigning the city's artillery emplacements. In the harbour, a French ship of the line, the Orient, rides at anchor beside a squadron of your own Xebec frigates. The tricolour and the Jerusalem cross now fly side by side. You have made a deal with the future. You have invited the most dynamic, disruptive, and dangerous force of the modern age into your home. The potential gains are immense, a kingdom stretching from the Sinai to the Taurus Mountains. But as you listen to the faint alien strains of the Marseillaise drifting up from the French barracks, a revolutionary anthem echoing off the Crusader stones, you feel a profound and chilling premonition. You have just invited a new god into your very crowded pantheon, and you have no idea what sacrifices he will demand. The silence is the first thing that shocks visitors from Europe. You were born into it, so you take it for granted. Here, in the heart of the Negev desert, 40 years after Bonaparte's gamble remade your world, the sound of the Industrial Revolution is not the rhythmic clang of the steam hammer or the soot-choked cough of a coal furnace. It is a low, almost imperceptible hum. It is the sound of sunlight being turned into power. You are a senior engineer for the Royal Solar Trust, a company chartered by the king, but funded by the vast reserves of the Templar Order. You stand on the central observation tower of the Acre Array, a shimmering sea of polished metal and glass that stretches for 5 square miles across the desert floor. Below you, thousands of parabolic mirrors, arranged in impossibly long, neat rows, track the sun with silent, hydraulic precision. Each mirror is a masterpiece of Levantine engineering, its silvered glass cast in the furnaces of Tyre, its steel frame forged in the foundries of Tripoli. They are the soldiers of a new kind of army, and their enemy is scarcity. Your story, the story of your kingdom's unique industrial path, began with a crisis. The Napoleonic alliance brought French science and engineering flooding into Outremer. The first steam engines arrived in the 1,810 seconds, true copies of the Watt design. Textile mills, powered by these iron behemoths, sprang up along the coast, weaving the Jordan Valley's cotton into cloth that could compete with anything from Manchester. The sugar barons and merchant princes grew richer, but the machines were hungry, and your kingdom had nothing to feed them. You have no coal. The great forests of Lebanon, the cedars of God, were sacred and finite, needed for the hulls of your warships. To import coal from Britain was to place your economic destiny in the hands of a rival. For a decade, it seemed your industrial miracle would sputter and die. Starved of fuel, the solution came, as it always did, from a fusion of Western theory and Levantine necessity. The real-world anchor of your revolution was a man named Augustin Mouchot, a French physicist who in another timeline died in obscurity. In your world, his theories on capturing solar energy found a desperate and well-funded audience in the royal court of Acre. While his colleagues in Paris scoffed, preoccupied with the seemingly limitless power of coal, the Templar bankers saw the logic in his diagrams. They gave him a laboratory in Beirut and a blank check. The sun, after all, was the one resource the Levant had in infinite supply. What you now command is the perfection of Mouchot's dream. You call it the Jerusalem engine. It is not one engine, but a system. The mirrors concentrate the fierce, unfiltered sunlight of the Negev onto a network of vacuum-sealed glass tubes. Inside these tubes, a specially formulated oil is heated to over 400 degrees Celsius. This superheated oil is then pumped into a central heat exchanger where it boils water into high-pressure steam. That steam drives a massive turbine a French design, which in turn spins the electromagnetic generators, a British invention you have shamelessly copied and improved. The result is electricity. Vast, silent, and, once the initial construction is paid for, almost free. This is the unexpected twist of your age. You have had an industrial revolution without the smoke. Your cities have grown, but they have not become the dark, satanic mills of London or the Ruhr. The skies over Beirut and Tyre are still a brilliant, clear blue. The electricity, carried along a web of copper cables, powers the looms, drives the grinding mills, and has even begun to light the homes of the wealthy. Visitors from Europe write breathless accounts of this marvel. A modern, industrial nation powered by a clean, celestial fire. It has become a cornerstone of your national identity. You have not just modernized, you have done so in a way that feels cleaner, more rational, more enlightened than the brute force methods of the West. But today, you are not here to admire your creation. You are here to deal with its consequences. You descend from the tower and get into a steam car, a quiet electric-powered vehicle, not a noisy internal combustion one, and drive to the edge of the array, where a new section is under construction. The land here is being leveled by great earth-moving machines, also powered by electricity from the established grid. And waiting for you, at the boundary between the orderly geometry of your project and the chaotic wilderness of the desert, is a delegation of Bedouin tribesmen. They are led by their sheikh, a man named Sulaiman al-Azazma. His face, a roadmap of wrinkles carved by a lifetime under the sun you have harnessed. He does not offer you coffee or the traditional greetings of the desert. He stands with a quiet, unbreachable dignity, and his eyes are filled with a sorrow that is older than your kingdom. "Your iron camels graze on our lands," he says, his Arabic the pure, poetic language of the sands, not the hybridized tongue of the coastal cities. He gestures with his chin towards the new construction. You are building another garden of glass. To do so, you have fenced off the Wadi of the Gazelles, where our herds have watered since the time of the prophet Abraham. My people are thirsty. This is the ethical tension, the dirty secret of your clean revolution. The Negev, which looked empty on your maps in Beirut, is in fact a complex tapestry of traditional land rights, grazing routes, and seasonal settlements. To build your arrays, you required vast, contiguous tracts of land. The Royal Solar Trust, backed by the authority of the king, simply annexed it, offering the local tribes what you considered generous compensation in coin and grain. You saw it as a fair price for progress. They saw it as an incomprehensible insult. You offered them money for their mother. Sheikh Suleiman, you begin, choosing your words carefully. The water in the wadi has not been taken. It is still there. We can arrange for your people to have access at designated times. He gives you a look of profound pity, as if you are a child who has missed the entire point. You speak of access, of time. You think of the land as a thing to be divided and owned. For us, the land is not a possession. It is the thread of our life. You have cut the thread. You offer us grain from your storehouses. You want to turn us from the free people of the desert into beggars dependent on your charity. Your engine drinks the light of the sun, a gift from God to all men. But you have built a fence around that light and claim it is yours alone. How can a man own the sun? You have no answer for him. In the halls of the École Polytechnique, you learned how to calculate thermal efficiency and transmission loss. You learned how to manage a workforce and a budget, but they never taught you a formula for the value of a people's soul. You stand there, a man of the new age, clad in your practical European-style suit, facing this man of the old world. Behind you hums the clean, quiet, rational power of the future, a testament to your people's genius. Before you stands a man whose way of life you are systematically, and with the best of intentions, destroying. You have brought light to the cities of your kingdom, but you have cast a deep and permanent shadow over the people of this desert. And in the silence of the Negev, broken only by the hum of your engines, you are forced to confront the terrible, unanswerable calculus of progress. You should not be here, standing on the crowded quay in Beirut. The year is 1910, and you are a professor of demographics at the American University, an institution founded a few decades ago with Templar and American capital. You are watching a scene that, according to all your data, should be happening in reverse. A great, white-hulled ocean liner, the Estrella du Monte Libano, has just arrived, its decks crammed with passengers. They are not leaving. They are coming home. The men and women streaming down the gangplank are a strange and wonderful sight. They are Lebanese. Yes, you can see it in their faces. Hear it in the joyous, ululating cries of the waiting families, but they are also something else. Their skin is darker, burned by a sun more intense than the one that shines on these shores. Their clothes are of a different cut, lighter fabrics in brighter colours, and the language they speak is a musical, lilting blend of Arabic and Portuguese. These are the Brasileiros, the children and grandchildren of the Levant, returning from Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. They are not poor immigrants fleeing persecution. They are wealthy investors, engineers, and entrepreneurs, returning to the homeland their families never truly abandoned. This is the great demographic anomaly of your world, the ripple effect that has reshaped continents. The Great Migration, the Marjar, never happened. In our history, from the late 19th to the early 20th century, a vast portion of the Christian population of Mount Lebanon and Syria, driven by Ottoman oppression, sectarian conflict, and economic stagnation, fled their homeland. They scattered across the globe, forming vibrant, influential diasporas in the Americas, Australia, and Africa. They became the poets of New York, the merchants of Sao Paulo, the politicians of Detroit. But in your world, there was nothing to flee. Your Kingdom of Outremer was not a decaying Ottoman province. It was a stable, prosperous, and technologically advanced nation. It was a Christian homeland. It was a place of opportunity, not a place to escape. So they stayed. The real-world anchor of your study is the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. In our timeline, it is home to one of the largest Lebanese communities in the world. In your timeline, that community is a tiny fraction of its size. But the connection is not gone. It has been transformed. The few adventurous merchants who did travel to the New World in the 1,880 seconds did not go as desperate refugees. They went as agents of the great Levantine trading houses and the Templar banks. They were not peddlers with packs on their backs. They were the vanguard of an economic expansion. They established not small family shops, but branch offices. They went not to stay, but to invest, to trade, and eventually to return. This has created an entirely new social phenomenon, one you have termed circular migration. Families do not emigrate. They expand. A son might spend 10 years managing the family's coffee exporting business in Brazil, marry a local woman, and then return to Beirut to take his place on the company's board, his children fluent in both Portuguese and Arabic. They are not Lebanese Brazilians. They are a new, transnational Levantine elite, as comfortable in the salons of Rio as they are in the counting houses of Acre. The unexpected twist is the profound impact this has had, not on the Levant, but on the New World. You are reading a letter from a colleague at Harvard University, a man studying the social fabric of American cities. He writes of Detroit, a city growing rich from the manufacture of the new internal combustion automobiles. In our world, the city's north end was a bustling hub of Lebanese, Syrian, and Chaldean life. In yours, he describes it as a place of stark, unmediated ethnic conflict between the established Anglo-Protestant population and the new waves of Irish and Italian Catholic immigrants. There is no large established Arab Christian community to act as a buffer, a bridge, a mediating influence. The social chemistry of the city is harsher, more volatile. He writes of American politics, noting the absence of a strong Arab-American voice in foreign policy debates. The United States' view of the Middle East is more simplistic, more monolithic. It is shaped entirely by missionaries and oil prospectors, with no input from a significant, integrated population of Christian Arabs who could have explained the region's complexities. The ethical tension of this demographic reality is standing right in front of you on the quay. You are here to meet a man named Khalil Gibran, a young poet and artist returning after several years of study in Paris and Boston. In our world, he is Khalil Gibran, the voice of the diaspora, a man whose work is steeped in a profound sense of exile and longing for a lost homeland. His masterpiece, The Prophet, is a book about leaving, but the young man who steps off the ship is not a prophet of exile. He is confident, cosmopolitan, and utterly rooted. He is not haunted by loss. He is energized by possibility. You have read his early poems, published in the Beirut literary journals. They are not about the pain of separation. They are celebrations of a living, breathing, and complex homeland. They are about the hum of the Jerusalem engines in the desert, the theological debates in the university, the fusion of cultures in the bustling streets. He is a poet of presence, not absence. You greet him, and he speaks of his time abroad not as an escape, but as a journey of discovery that has only deepened his appreciation for his own culture. In Paris, he tells you, his eyes alight with intellectual fire. They are obsessed with the Orient, this fantasy of exoticism and decay. I told them, the Orient they dream of is a ghost. The true Orient is here. It is modern. It is alive. It is a work in progress. Our task is not to mourn a lost past, but to build a new future. Au, end of sexting braid. Au, as, and. Oh, you feel a surge of pride, but it is mingled with a strange academic melancholy. You have your poet, you have your people. They are here, they are home, they are thriving. But what has the world lost? It has lost the specific, poignant, and powerful art born of the immigrant's experience. It has lost the creative friction that comes from transplanting an ancient culture into a new land. Cities like Sydney, Montreal, and Buenos Aires are subtly but profoundly different, their cultural tapestries missing a vibrant thread. The great gift of the Lebanese diaspora to the world, its resilience, its commercial acumen, its unique cultural perspective was never given. You have kept your greatest treasures for yourself. Your kingdom is stronger, richer, and more culturally vibrant for it. But as you walk with your brilliant young poet through the streets of his home city, you cannot help but wonder about the echo that was never heard, the reflection that never appeared in the water. You have prevented a great scattering, a great sorrow, and in doing so, you may have made the world just a little bit smaller. The map room in the royal palace at Acre smells of old leather and fresh ink. The year is 1918. The world is a bonfire. The great empires of Europe have bled themselves white in the trenches of the Western Front. The Russian Tsar is a prisoner in a provincial house, his empire collapsing into a bloody civil war. And the Ottoman Empire, your ancient rival, your sometime ally, is a dying beast. Its armies shattered, its provinces in revolt. You are the foreign minister of the Kingdom of Outremer, and you are here to carve the carcass. For the last 4 years, your kingdom has played a dangerous, masterful game of neutrality. While the British, French, and Germans slaughtered each other over scraps of mud in Flanders, you sold them food, textiles, and munitions at exorbitant prices, your Templar bankers financing all sides with cold impartiality. Your alliance with Napoleon was a memory of a distant past. You had long since pivoted to a position of armed independence. Your army, trained by French and later Prussian advisors, equipped with solar-forged steel from your own foundries, is the most professional fighting force in the region. Your navy, a fleet of fast modern cruisers, controls the eastern Mediterranean. You did not fight in the Great War. You profited from it. And now, as the old world order crumbles, your moment has come. On the great table before you is a map of the dying Ottoman lands. Drawn in red grease pencil are the lines of the infamous Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret pact you learned of through Templar intelligence years ago, in which the British and French planned to divide the Middle East between them. In your world, that agreement is a dead letter, a fantasy drawn up by colonial powers who no longer have the strength to enforce their will. The king, a shrewd, aging monarch named Philip VI, traces a line on the map with a trembling finger. The British have taken Baghdad. Their Colonel Lawrence has raised the Arabs in revolt. The French demand their historical sphere of influence in Cilicia. They treat us as if we are still a minor client state. It is time to remind them who we are. You nod. The plan has been in preparation for a generation. It is not a war of conquest, but a police action. It is not an invasion, but an intervention to restore order and protect minority peoples. The language is modern, polite, and utterly cynical. In the spring, your army moves, not south into the British-controlled Sinai, nor west to challenge the French fleet. You move north and east, into the chaos of the collapsing Ottoman state. Your stated mission, broadcast to the world from the radio transmitters in Beirut, is to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. The real-world anchor of your action is the grim reality of the Armenian and Assyrian genocides, which in this timeline happened as well, as the desperate, dying Ottoman regime lashed out at its Christian minorities. But here, the victims have a powerful neighbor who can act. Your armored columns, powered by quiet electric engines, advance into Cilicia, into the regions around Lake Van and the upper Euphrates. You meet scattered, demoralized resistance from Turkish units, which quickly collapses. You are not seen as conquerors by the local populations. You are seen as saviors. Armenian and Assyrian militias, who have been fighting a desperate guerrilla war in the mountains, flock to your banner. You arrive in the city of Diyarbakir, not as an invading army, but as liberators, greeted by weeping crowds of starving Christian survivors. This is the ethical tension of your grand design. Your motives are not purely humanitarian. Every city you liberate is another node in a new sphere of influence. Every Christian minority you protect becomes a loyal component of a greater Levantine state. You are using the genuine suffering of these peoples as the moral justification for a calculated act of imperial expansion. The British, exhausted by 4 years of war and facing revolt in Ireland and India, protest weakly. The French, bled white at Verdun, make threats, but have no divisions to spare. Your message to them is simple and firm. You broke this region. We will fix it. These are our people. By 1920, the new reality is codified in the Treaty of Tyre. There is no British mandate for Palestine or French mandate for Syria. Instead, the world is forced to recognize the existence of the Federal Kingdom of Greater Outremer. It is not a simple, centralized state. Drawing on the principles of your confessional Enlightenment, you have created a vast, multi-ethnic federation, a Christian mandate stretching from the Mediterranean to the borders of a nascent Turkish republic and a chaotic Persia. The unexpected twist is the structure of this new state. It is a layered and complex creation. The old Kingdom of Outremer, the coastal heartland, remains the core, but now it is joined by the Protectorate of Armenia, an autonomous region governed by an Armenian council under the protection of your army. To the south, you have established the Principality of Jerusalem, a special administrative zone. The city itself is declared an open city, its holy sites administered by an interfaith council of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim leaders, all under the watchful eye of a Templar governor. You have no interest in rekindling old religious wars. You are interested in stability and control. This new state is a demographic and political marvel. It is a Christian majority power in the heart of the Middle East, but it is a state where dozens of minorities have a protected, institutionalized place. It is the ultimate expression of your unique history, a Crusader state that has evolved into a multicultural federation, a military power that projects its influence not through crude conquest, but through the sophisticated language of minority rights and humanitarian intervention. You stand before the map again, this time with the new borders inked in permanently. You have achieved the dream of your ancestors. You have secured the Holy Land and created a mighty Christian kingdom. But you are a modern man, a student of history, and you see the dangers with a chilling clarity. Your new kingdom is a fortress of minorities in a sea of rising nationalisms. To the north is a resentful and humiliated Turkish republic under a charismatic general named Mustafa Kemal. To the east and south, the Arab tribes, armed and inspired by the British during the war, are beginning to speak of a single Arab nation. You have built your great edifice on the fault lines of a dozen new and aggressive identities. You have justified your expansion as a moral imperative, a duty to protect the persecuted. But in doing so, you have taken on a burden that may prove impossible to bear. You are now the guarantor of a fragile peace among peoples who have ancient reasons to hate one another. You are the policeman of a dozen smouldering conflicts. Your kingdom is larger, stronger, and more secure than ever before. But as you look at the vast, complex territory you now control, you feel not the thrill of victory, but the immense, crushing weight of a permanent and unsolvable responsibility. The television screen is silent, a thick pane of armoured glass set into the wall of your office. The image it displays is in vibrant colour, broadcast from a royal satellite high above. Below, the city of Jerusalem unfolds in the crystalline light of a spring morning. It is the year 1965. You are the Grand Master of the Templar Order, a position that no longer has any military meaning. You are the chairman of a global financial empire, a man who moves markets and topples governments with a quiet phone call. And you are, for the first time in your life, afraid. On the screen, the annual Easter procession is making its way along the Via Dolorosa. It is, as always, a perfect managed spectacle, a living diorama of your kingdom's soul. At the head of the procession is the Latin Patriarch, his vestments heavy with gold thread. Beside him walks the Maronite Patriarch, the Greek Orthodox, the Armenian, and the Coptic. Behind them are the lay leaders of each community, the elected senators of the Haute Cour. Flanking the entire procession keeping the cheering crowds at a respectful distance, are not knights in mail, but the gendarmerie of the holy sites, an elite police force. Their uniforms are crisp, modern blue, their sidearms holstered, their faces hidden behind reflective visors. It is a pageant of peaceful, orderly coexistence, broadcast to the entire world as a testament to the genius of the Levantine model. It is the most beautiful lie you have ever seen. Your Kingdom of Outremer has become a global power. Your banks in Acre and Tyre are rivaled only by those in London and New York. Your solar-powered industrial base is the envy of a world increasingly choked by coal and oil. Your university in Beirut is a magnet for the world's greatest minds. You have achieved everything your ancestors dreamed of and more. You have built a city on a hill, a beacon of Christian prosperity and stability in a turbulent world. This is the ethical paradox at the heart of your success. Your kingdom is, by its very constitution, a Christian state. The king must be a Latin Catholic. The highest offices are reserved for members of the recognized Christian confessions. The cross is on your flag. Yet, to achieve the stability and prosperity you now enjoy, you have had to systematically secularize the substance of your society. The real religion of your kingdom is not Christianity. It is pragmatism. It is the managed, rational, and profitable coexistence of tribes. The young people of your kingdom, the students at the university, are the living embodiment of this contradiction. They are the most educated, most cosmopolitan generation in your history. They listen to rock and roll music from America on their transistor radios. They read the existentialist philosophers from Paris. They have grown up in a world of peace and unprecedented wealth. And they are beginning to find the gilded cage of your confessional system suffocating. They are asking a new and dangerous question. Why should a man's rights, his career prospects, his choice of spouse, be determined by the faith of his grandfather? Why can he not simply be a citizen of Outremer? The ghost of the Marquis de Vence, the French diplomat from 2 centuries ago, now speaks with the voice of your own children. They call your carefully balanced system a form of apartheid, a judgment that horrifies you with its accuracy. The unexpected twist is not that there is dissent, but where the most dangerous dissent is coming from. It is not from the Muslim or Jewish minorities, who, while relegated to a secondary status, have a protected and prosperous place within your system. The real threat comes from within. A new movement has taken root among the young, educated members of the Frankish Latin community, the historical bedrock of the kingdom. They call themselves the Universalists. They argue that the entire confessional system is a betrayal of the true Christian message, which they see as a universal call to all humanity, not a tribal identity marker. They are demanding the complete secularization of the state, the abolition of all confessional laws, the creation of a single, secular identity for all citizens, regardless of faith. You are reading a report from your intelligence division on the Universalists. Their leader is a charismatic young history professor from Beirut, named Jean de Lusignan, a distant, illegitimate cousin of the king himself. He is not a revolutionary calling for violence. He is far more dangerous. He is a reformer, using the very language of your own Levantine Enlightenment reason, logic, progress, to demand the dismantling of the system that Enlightenment created. The confessional state, he wrote in a recent pamphlet, was a brilliant solution to a medieval problem. It allowed our ancestors to survive. But we are no longer a besieged fortress. We are a world power, and this system has become our prison. It perpetuates division. It sanctifies prejudice. It forces us to see our neighbours not as fellow citizens, but as members of a rival tribe. To be truly modern, to be truly Christian, we must have the courage to let it go. You look at the silent screen. The procession has reached the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the real-world anchor of your kingdom's entire existence. The great doors swing open. The patriarchs enter. The camera pans over the crowd. You see the faces. The older generation, their expressions a mixture of piety and civic pride. And then you see the younger faces. Some look bored, as if watching a meaningless piece of state theatre. Others hold signs, quickly confiscated by the gendarmerie, with slogans you can just make out: one kingdom, one law. A citizen, not a confession. With the cold certainty of a banker assessing a failing loan, that your world cannot survive this. If you give in to the universalists, if you dismantle the confessional system, you will unleash a century of pent-up resentments. The Maronites will fear the loss of their protected status. The Orthodox will resent the historical dominance of the Latins. The Armenians will demand their own state. The delicate, intricate clockwork will shatter into 1,000 warring pieces. The peace you have maintained for generations is not the peace of genuine harmony. It is the peace of a perfectly balanced stalemate. But if you resist, if you use the power of the state to crush this idealistic movement, you will become a tyrant. You will be turning your back on the very principles of reason and progress your kingdom now claims to champion. You will be admitting that your city on a hill is nothing more than a beautifully managed prison. The procession ends. The television screen goes dark. You are left in the silence of your office, a man at the pinnacle of a world that is beginning to dissolve beneath him. You have survived the Saracen, the Mamluk, the Mongol, the Ottoman, and the great powers of Europe. You have built a society of unimaginable complexity and wealth. But you have no defense against a single, simple, and devastatingly rational idea. And you realize, as you stare at your own reflection in the dark screen, that the one enemy you never prepared for was your own children. And so, the branch of history grows in a different shape. The path not taken leads to a world that is, in many ways, more stable, more orderly than our own. In this alternate stream, a world was saved from the tide. The ancient Christian cultures of the Levant were not scattered to the winds of a global diaspora. A unique synthesis of East and West bloomed a century before the Renaissance, and a great multi-ethnic power provided a bulwark of stability in a region that, in our timeline, would know centuries of conflict. There was no Sykes-Picot, no colonial mandates, no bitter legacy of broken promises. A great scattering was prevented, a great sorrow was averted. But this great act of preservation cast a long shadow. The desperation that drove Columbus across the ocean was absent in a world where the riches of the East flowed freely through Acre. The explosive, chaotic birth of the New World, with its radical, transformative ideas of individual liberty born from a blank slate, was delayed, altered, perhaps even stillborn. The Kingdom of Outremer, in its quest for perfect, managed order, enshrined the community as the ultimate reality, sacrificing the individual to the group. Our world was forged in the fire of countless rebellions against precisely that kind of ancient order. Theirs became a history of the community. Ours, a history of the individual. One sought to manage identity, the other to liberate it. Neither path was without its profound costs. The Kingdom of Outremer stands as a monument to the genius of survival, a testament that a society can endure for 1,000 years by perfecting the art of the cage, only to find itself a stranger to the very idea of freedom that, in our world, was so often born from the ashes of such lost causes.